Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Wade into Wealth. We continue the march on through summer. Nice to be back.
I feel like it's been a little while.
Yeah, well, it has. It has. The last one we recorded before I was out on vacation, and then I had the COVID. It caught up. Got me for a couple of days. Got me good. And now we're back to live action, even though this is recorded. Something we've talked about for a while, and we want to talk about today: recession.
Everybody's talked about it for a while. Even all the news outlets, every news article you see pretty much talks about, well, we must be in a recession.
It's one of those buzzwords that comes up, and
for sure.
But I think it's
and
good.
It makes people nervous.
Sure. The idea of a recession. I think a lot of people don't know what a recession is,
right,
or don't know how it impacts them, but
they just know there's a negative connotation with that word. It doesn't mean a good thing.
Yes. So what is it?
Well, it has a very loose definition.
It does. There's not any one thing that you can say, oh, it's a recession because that one thing happened.
Now, I think it's important to understand, one, how it's defined.
Yes.
Which is, for the longest time, there's been this rule of thumb that two contracting quarters of gross domestic product, GDP, which is a complete jargon term.
Yes.
GDP just means anything that is produced, manufactured, or a service provided here in the United States. So it's a measure of our economic output, of how many goods are we manufacturing, how many services are we selling, how's our economy doing.
Yeah.
And historically, it's just been a rule of thumb that when GDP, gross domestic product, declines for 2 quarters in a row, so for 6 months, that's a recession. But that's not necessarily the case, because there is a panel of 8 economists who determine when a recession occurred. Yes. Interesting way I said that, right? They determine when a recession occurred, not when it's happening.
Right. Well, because in many ways, you don't know it's happening.
Correct.
Because you have to
for
wait
months or years into the future. That was a recession.
That was a recession.
Right.
Right. Okay. Now what?
Which is defined in their loose definition, the 8 economists, which is called the National Bureau of Economic Research, is defined as a severe decline in output and employment.
Okay.
That's their definition of it.
All right.
So no timetable, no 2 quarters, no GDP going down. It's a very loose definition, open to plenty of ways of interpretation.
And what is severe to one person is or can be different than what severe is to someone else. You know, we are obsessed in, I would say, this country, but just most people, with labels, of having to label things because the economy's not great. Well, are we in a recession? We have to put a name to it. Mm-hmm. And to me, and I'll ask you, does it matter? Does determining whether we are in one matter?
No. And the reality is, it's if you're investing, and it comes down to this. Going back to 1948, we've had 12 recessions.
Okay.
In 1948, the S&P 500 was 110. Today, Tuesday, August 9th, it's more than 4,100. So does a recession mean you're not going to meet your retirement or your investment goals? No. But a recession is a factor of an economy. It's going to happen at times.
Yes.
So, this is a terrible explanation, but frankly, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And you should not change your long-term investment picture or your long-term strategy because we may or may not technically be in a recession.
The other thing is that a recession applies to the economy.
Right, not necessarily the stock market.
The economy is not the stock market.
Right. There's a connection there.
There's a connection. Yes, there's a connection, but they are not the same.
Right.
They are not mutually exclusive, which means one has to move as the other does. And the last recession we were in was in 2020 at the downturn during the start of the COVID-19
which I didn't even know.
Pandemic.
I did not even know. But you think about that. Oh, yeah, that was a severe decline in output and employment.
Yes.
Sure.
And if you look at the timeline of 2 consecutive quarters. Well, the first quarter would have been the first quarter of the year. So January, February, March, that's when things were pretty rough. And even though things settled a bit, I would say in May and June in terms of the stock market, in terms of the economy, you still had people that were home. You still had the workforce that was severely depleted. And so, yes, I can see how that would.
Well, and you take it a little bit further where the Bureau of Economic Research's description does not have a time component to it. It's just severe decline in output and employment. And that's exactly what we had for, even though it was only a couple months, that's exactly what we had in March of 2020.
Yeah.
It just didn't last for 6 months or years.
No, and yes, the stock market went down during that period. It went down significantly over the course of February and March and April. But if you just look calendar year, stock market was positive. If you stayed invested, you were likely profitable.
That's right.
And the other thing, and this is where, is that, yes, you can label something, we're in a recession. But does that mean you can't retire? Does that mean your dividend income, if you're invested in quality dividend-paying companies, is going to go down? No. And
it's just a reason not to invest.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is there are always reasons not to invest money. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
It just, as human beings, it gives us an out to say, maybe I shouldn't do that right now. But we paraphrase John Templeton.
Yes.
The guy who started Franklin Templeton Investments, one of the largest mutual fund companies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The best time to invest is when you have the money.
Mm-hmm. I had it put to me like this, or I read this somewhere, and I can't recall where, is that we are always heading towards a recession.
Yes.
What we don't know is the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say that we're always, and it makes sense. We're always heading towards one, but we don't know. Is the next recession going to be 2 years? Is it going to be 2 months? Is it going to be 5 years, 10 years? You don't know. Mm-hmm. We're always heading towards one.
Right.
And another
on average, it's one every 6 years.
Yeah. And even though the frequency, I don't know if are we considered to be in a recession right now?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
I mean, if you take the rule of thumb.
Confusing myself here.
You are. The rule of thumb that says, thank you, that 2 consecutive declining quarters of GDP, if they only go off of that, then yes. Based on that rule of thumb, we are. But based on the description by the Bureau of Economic Research, which is severe decline in output and employment, there is not a severe decline in employment right now.
No,
we have a historically, I don't know if it's, but the unemployment rate is very, very low. So, and the job market still remains strong. So that isn't really there.
Right.
And then do you consider marginal consecutive declining GDP quarters as severe declines?
I don't know. I guess we'd have to talk to the economists that are on this panel. We need the 8
economists, yeah. Right.
And they weren't available today.
They did not pick up the phone for us. Yeah.
It's just us.
Yeah, it's just us. So based on one rule of thumb, it says yes. Based on the parameters of the 8 economists who determine when a recession started and ended or when an expansion started and ended, maybe not.
We don't know.
We don't know. And we're not going to know for months, possibly years.
Which is why, in large part, the labeling of something as a recession or not, to me,
is what it
is somewhat pointless.
It's like the Wall Street Journal had a good analogy of calling a recession is the equivalent of a coroner doing their job. They're going back and looking at data that caused this event, but they're not going to make predictions in real time because they can't.
Right. And the person's already dead.
Correct. The recession will have already happened.
It's already happened.
By the time they come out and say, oh, yeah, that was a recession.
And I shouldn't say it's pointless, I guess, because we can always learn from things that happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So I should backtrack from that because we can learn. When in a recession, that means something went wrong. Something went wrong, whether that was the Great Recession in 2008.
Or multiple things went wrong.
Or multiple things. And there is an example where, okay, well, they were given mortgages to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wanted to apply for a mortgage, whether you could afford it or not. Right. Well, now that has changed. It is tougher to buy a home. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. You can learn from recession. So it's not, and I guess in saying pointless is thinking from a perspective of it doesn't necessarily or shouldn't change your financial plans or your investment plans or allow for you to make significant changes. But there can be some value in looking back and saying, hey, what happened here? What can we learn from it?
And it shouldn't be a reason for you to lose sleep. I know that that's easier said than done.
And that's what it is for a lot of people, though,
Right.
is that it is an excuse.
Because we know,
To not
well,
take
recession is
action.
bad. That's negative. But what impact does that have on me? Now, if there is a severe drop in employment, there's going to be an impact on people, of
Yes.
course. Severe drop in output, which probably would coincide with a severe drop in employment, because if you don't have the employees, you're not going to have the output for it. Yeah, that's going to have an impact on people. But just seeing it and trying to predict where we are today, it's helping people to lose sleep in a way that perhaps you may not need to right now.
It's adding worry where there may not need to be worry.
Correct.
We have enough things to be stressed about, enough things to be worried about, enough things to keep you up at night.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we are in a recession or not, I would not concern myself with it too much based on a financial plan. If you
Right.
have that, that is much more valuable. And that can serve and should serve as your North Star
Mm-hmm.
for decisions that are being made. And I've seen that in conversations with clients where they've come in, they've been nervous, they've seen declines in investments.
Right.
Spoiler alert, we have not avoided those either.
No one has, unless your money's sitting in the bank.
But to be able to say, yeah, your investments are down, but let's look at your plan. Are you still on track? There is a metric we can look at to say, yeah, okay, you're still good.
Yeah.
And as long as you are still okay and well within that range, that is what you should be basing decisions off of, not whether 8 economists are saying we're in a recession or not.
And not what the media is telling you.
Pay no attention.
None. Just go about living your life.
Just go about
Everything else
living.
take care of itself.
Yeah. That's good advice. That's
try.
good advice.
I try.
Yeah. Not just a trophy husband over there.
Nope. I'm not.
No.
Not.
Nope.
Or trophy business partner.
No, you're good at that as well. It pains me to say it, but but you're good at that as well. So, are we in a recession? Maybe, maybe not.
Who knows? We'll tell you in a year.
Does it matter to you? I don't think so.
No, I think you need to stick with your plan. Go about living your life as you will continue to, based on what your long-term goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, since 1948, we've had 12 of these. And in 1948, the S&P 500 was 110. Today, it's more than 4,100.
Mm.
So on paper, it sounds like a reason not to invest.
It climbs a wall of worry.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Climbs that wall of worry. We're always worried. We're always heading towards a recession. But what happens along the way? Gains, growth, creation of wealth.
But we forget about those because we pay attention as human beings. We
Sure.
focus on the downside of things.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're in a recession or not, but I know it's time for us to wrap this up and that we shall return in the future with another edition of Wade into Wealth. And we do appreciate you being with us. Thanks. Talk with you next time.